and welcome if you don't mind. I'm going to get right into it today. We have a special guest with us, and Miss Nay Marie, and I'm going to tell you in advance, she is my goddaughter. So I am so glad that she is with me today. And I see that I am frozen today, and that only happens when Lee Ethel is with me. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm sure you can hear me. So while I introduce her, then I'm going to play around in the background. I have watched Nay Marie grow up from her mother's stomach until now. I'm so proud of everything she has accomplished, everything she has done, and just a little history about her. Nay Marie is a multifaceted, multi-talented, creative alchemist and healing arts jeweler who transforms gemstones, cowrie, metal, and wood into intentional adornments. Each piece is a sacred tool that has been handcrafted, cleansed, and blessed to help manifest your desires and amplify your aesthetics. Through her intuitive creations, Nay Marie honors ancestral legacy while empowering you to walk boldly in your purpose. And that's what we're all about, walking in your purpose. Sometimes we fight that, but God has a purpose. These are
Mhm.
the earrings. I guess you can't see it because I'm frozen right now, but these are the earrings. So, Nay Marie, welcome, welcome, welcome,
Thank you
welcome.
so much, Emma. I
What
appreciate that.
what inspired you to start your own business?
Um, Honestly, I always, since I was a child, I was like, I wanted to have my own business. And like going through life and going through the motions, you kind of lose sight of a few things. But even from when I was young, I was like, oh, I wanted to own my own hair salon, and I don't even know why I wanted a hair salon. It's random. I didn't even start doing hair until I got into college. So I don't know why when I was a child I was like, oh, I want a hair salon. Um, I'd barely even been to like hair salons at that point. My mom had just done my hair. So um but yeah, I've always wanted to be uh an entrepreneur and just do my own thing. And I think after I had, a few jobs after college, and after I actually got laid off from a job because I was making the most money, but I had the least amount of hours. So when they were doing cutbacks, it made sense to let me go. I was just like, yeah, never again. This is the last time I'm going to work for somebody else. And I've um, multifaceted, creative. So I've done a lot of things. I've had a lot of businesses, but I think photography and jewelry design are the two that have really just been the most fulfilling for me.
I love it. I love the earrings that you have on right now, Nay. This is so awesome. Let me see your ring. I love that ring. Did you? Oh, wow. Wow. And how can they find out how you do this? Do you have like a video on Instagram or
Mhm.
TikTok or anything?
So I have a
One.
few videos showing how I make my pieces. Even recently, I think maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, I posted how I make one of my most popular pieces, which is called the Nala lip cuff. And it's a beautiful, just simple lip cuff, but when you put it on, it adds just so much vibrancy to, your look. Um, so yeah, I have a few videos on my YouTube. I have a few videos on my Instagram that showcase how I make some of my jewelry and some of my adornments.
Wow, that is so awesome. That is so awesome. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur?
I did. I did. I think even through the times when I was holding down other jobs, I think that was more so survival mode. You're a kid in college, you got to make money somehow. And even then, that was a bit more of an entrepreneurial time for me because I was braiding my friend's hair, when I was in college, which then led to them telling everybody else, which then led to me having clients that didn't go to the college,
Yeah.
so I got a taste of my entrepreneurial spirit then. But then when I came back home, I had a few clients, but it was obviously, now I'm on my own. I have rent, I have bills, and I was still when I came back to New York, I was still going to college. So I had to, pay my way through everything. So I was like, all right, we're going to get a job. We're going to make sure that I have finances and everything going. But then it was never for me. The whole structure of it just didn't fit um, my spirit. And I found joy in it because I'm a service-based person. So I could always find joy in the jobs, but it was just every time the overhead and the management, it never made sense to me how they treated their employees or the structures that they made and the things that they wanted us to relay to the clients, and the clients are looking at us like that doesn't make sense, and we're looking at them like we know, but there's nothing we can do about it. So I didn't like being put in that position, and um not knowing until I actually got into the things that I was doing, that it really wasn't feeding me, even though it felt like it was, because I enjoyed the service of it. It wasn't feeding me, and I didn't feel like um I was walking in my purpose.
Wonderful. I remember you as a little girl, you would always have a pad and drawing designs. You wanted to be a fashion designer. And I'm like, I'm laying there trying to go to sleep. And Nay wanted to, draw designs and stuff like that. And when she went away to Howard, I was so proud of her. And
Thank
just,
you.
I'd always say, can you do my hair? And things of that nature, with your mom, she would be rough
Hmm.
on my head, but Nay, you were gentle with my head. So
Thank
I
you.
love what you have taken and done. It's still in the fashion industry.
Yeah,
Now it's
absolutely.
just from clothing, and your
Hmm.
clothing designs were awesome.
Thank you.
One thing I love about you is you never worried about what you had on and what others said. Your
Hmm.
mother always taught you, if you like it, you wear it. And I picked
Hmm.
that up from her as well. Sometimes I put on some stuff and I'll be like, Lynn Kelly, what do you have on? And you know what? I'll be like, I like it. So I'm gonna wear it.
Hmm.
But anyway, I like that. How do you define success? Really, is it by the money? Is it by the designs? How do you really define success in this industry? Because there are other people that make jewelry, but what is it about your uniqueness?
That's actually the point that I was going to make. For me, my success is my uniqueness and the joy
Yes.
that I receive from doing it. Um, to me, jewelry design is meditative, and I've gone through, for other jewelers who might know, this kind of like a process where some of us may start in beading, right? So like you're just beading, or you're making bracelets or little beaded earrings or something like that. And then I moved into wire wrapping, so now I'm making more intricate pieces, and I'm using the different types of metals and understanding the benefits for our body, including the benefits of like some of the crystals and things like that that can help heal our bodies. And then I going into metalsmithing, that was just like a whole nother world. There's a whole nother science. I'm actually, learning um, the actual like benefits that metals have for our body, and it's not just about adornment. There's also um, metaphysical as well as physical benefits. Copper is a conductor, so it helps a lot of people use it to reduce arthritis and things in their hands. It helps work with our iron, especially as people with melanin. So all these things that I'm just looking at it as from the beginning as, oh, I think these things are pretty, and I've always appreciated adornment, even from both of my grandmothers. When I look at them and I look at their style, and how my dad's mom was so big on multiple rings, and I've always like just stared at her rings when I was young.
Mhm.
And my mom's mom is Foxy Mama. She steps out,
She does.
so
Missy
I've
Otis, she does
always
not play. Yes.
right, and I've always looked at them, and I've seen that the confidence um that they walk with and that they move with, and I love that my jewelry provides that confidence for people as well, in addition to the other, like I said, metaphysical or physical benefits. So for me, I feel like that's the success. Um, Even just yesterday, I woke up and I had a client do an unboxing of a mystery box that she purchased, and she's going through each piece and how much she loves it. And I'm like, I don't have pay influencer money, so I'm like, I don't pay my when I post these videos. These are actual paying clients who love the products that they receive, and it means something to them, and then that means something to me. Like, that's the fulfilling part, that's the success. So yeah, to me, that's the definition. The money is great, but money aside, but the actual response of the people who are wearing my adornments is the success for me.
And that is so important because you have authenticity. And what you use, your products are authentic products.
Mhm.
That's the difference. I remember bringing back pieces and jewels and beads and stuff from Ghana because your mom was going to make earrings and bracelets. So you're a chip off the old block with that.
Mhm.
And I remember how you would say, Mommy, do this and do that. And, how you took over and really
Yeah.
started to do stuff with those beads from Ghana. I used to go to the art center and get those. And to look at it now, the authentic, so many people sell African stuff, but is it authentic? And
Yeah.
yours is authentic. You have been sought out by the African community because they like, how the cultural identity that you present. What are some of the things that you have done in the African American community away from the jewelry? Have you done any speaking or, showcase, shows and stuff?
So I've done a lot. Like I said, I've been on this entrepreneurial journey since 2009, and it's all essentially been service based. So we've hosted events. Will, my husband, and I have hosted events, that uplift the community in multiple ways. There's multiple genres of events that we've done in that realm. I've done speaking engagements. I'm a photographer, and my artistry is focused on the Black community. And I also have a magazine called Taji Mag, which I've been doing for over a decade, and which actually volume 44 releases on today. So
All right.
that's
Yes.
a memo I almost forgot. But yeah, so and that magazine has been like uh my actual, like, really first baby of giving something back to the community, that where they can also see themselves. It focuses on highlighting Black owned businesses and Black artists, and people in the community who are just doing great and amazing things. I feel like a lot of our publications became really gossip and celebrity focused, and it didn't necessarily reflect the people as much. So my goal, especially starting back then, because the whole catalyst was um, after they had gunned down Mike Brown in the street, and Black people were saying, oh, I want to shop Black, I would shop Black, but I don't know any Black owned businesses. Meanwhile, I'm a Black owned business, and my friend is Black and she owns a business, and that friend over there, he's Black and he owns a business. So what do people mean? They don't know any Black owned businesses. And I started a Facebook group, and just to start highlighting, the Black owned businesses so that they could show up and promote themselves. And that turned into this huge blooming,
Wow.
Facebook group. And from there, I was like, well, I would like to, create a magazine that actually showcases these businesses. And obviously I'm a photographer, so I want the beauty and the fashion and the pictures and everything to reflect our community in that manner as well.
Black excellence at its best.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. So you have so much Black girl magic, Nay, and I'm just loving that. How you're promoting culture and everything you're doing. But for a Black entrepreneur, there are so many challenges out there. And I'm listening to you, and from a mental health standpoint, it seems like you're mindful in designing and making your jewelry. And that can be therapy for you, being in the moment and just blocking out everything else, but just really, being mindful in the moment. So that can be really therapeutic. So, do you do
It
anything
actually
else?
it
Go
actually
ahead.
really is therapeutic. Even so, the like you had mentioned, my mom had gotten back into making jewelry. And so at first she was doing the ceramic side of it, which
Mm-hmm.
I'd never really done, personally, but I was like, helping her and motivating her and doing the attachments and like the little things that I could help that weren't necessarily the actual ceramics. But then she started getting into, like you said, she had beads from you, and she had tons
Mm-hmm.
of beads just from years, like decades ago when she was doing it previously. So she was like, let me start using some of these. And at the time I was already like vending and doing things with my magazine. So I was like, and I'm super entrepreneurial focused. So when the moment she said it, I'm like, yes, we're gonna do this for a business, we're gonna do that, we're gonna set this up, and I'll put your stuff on my table and da 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 da. And so then one day I was like, well, I'll help you. So that way the next time I'm vending, you'll have more things like out on the table and I'll help you make them. And while I was sitting there, just like, there's like something like playing on the background on the TV maybe, but I kind of just like zoned out, and it was truly therapeutic just sitting there like stringing the beads. And I would never think that something so simple would be, so fulfilling and so healing. And after a while she went on to live life. And I was like, I'm not gonna, because I don't want to force. I was like, I want you to be doing it because you love it and you're passionate about it. But I enjoyed it so much, and obviously now people are coming to my table looking for jewelry. um, so I enjoyed it so much that I kept doing it. But then going through, like I said, all of the stages of jewelry creation has also been meditative. It's also a very fulfilling, passionate process, because it's like I know where I started, and to know that I can literally take sheets of metal and turn them into these elaborate designs. And then eventually I started to learn how to create in wax, and I can take the wax and have that casted as metal. And just it's like my creativity is finally getting to live. It's like that little girl who used to draw, on her
Yeah.
pad all day, is finally coming out and being able to, enjoy all the designs and things that are going on in her head. So it's definitely a very healing and therapeutic process.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. I remember your mom making the ceramics, and I hope she's watching this show today because there were some dolls that she was supposed to make for me, and I never got them. But I remember back in the day, in New York when we were growing up, and I remember how your mom and I were always into different things, artsy things and crafty things together. We would drive you up, and you and my boys, and we would go and do artsy crafty things and try to sell our stuff to Neiman Marcus. And we were entrepreneurs back then, we just didn't realize it. But if
Hmm.
you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Oh, okay. So all the time, I feel like when I think about this, it's always just the instilling the you're enough. You're not
Yes.
crazy. Even though you might be different from other people, even though you might think differently from other people, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong. Like you said, I was always kind of walking my own lane. I would dress different, and even the times when like my mom would be like, you are you, like you're gonna be your own individual person. She would always say like, you came out backwards. You were trying to stand up when you was 2 days old. Like you was always doing everything against the grain. Even the times when she was like, okay, that outfit's a little crazy. It's like there is still this underlying notion of I'm my own person, I'm my own individual, and that's okay. And I feel like a lot of people who walk and move different don't necessarily receive um, that message until sometimes until it's too late, or until we're so far along in life that we have to do so much unpacking and healing to get over old trauma. So I would definitely, one of my number one messages is that it is absolutely okay to be you, continue to walk in your lane, and speak up for yourself, because I don't feel like I did that enough when I was a child. I know I might have talked a lot, but I don't feel like I spoke up for myself in the times when it was actually important. So those would definitely be two things that I would say to little baby Nick.
Yes, definitely. And also, you know, as a young child, you're already trying to find that niche. I remember you playing in your room with your whole set, and you stayed in there for hours. And that was the start of something because you were creative then. So I look
Mhm.
at that. Also, positive affirmations. You know, that's important. I am enough. I can
Yep.
do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Those
Mhm.
are positive affirmations because there's so much negativity out there. So
Yes.
you have to put yourself over here and protect yourself
Mhm.
from negativity. Also, failures. How do you deal with failures?
Well, that's another thing younger and they need to needed to learn. But
Yeah.
as I got older, I learned that it wasn't necessarily failure. It was just, okay, so I didn't pass the test this time, right? Everything that we're going through is a lesson, and you're gonna repeat the lessons until you learn the lesson. So if I'll give a more physical example so that it's easier to understand. When I was first learning metalsmithing, and I went to the classes, I did it in class, everything worked great. It just all seemed like such a seamless process of soldering and joining metal. And then I buy all the supplies, right? And I'm trying to create as much of a home studio as I can so that I don't have to rely going outside. And I'm at home and I'm doing all the same things that I'm doing in the class, and it's not working. And I'm livid. And I'm like, I just did this. Why it worked there, so why can't it work here, right? And Will he's in the back with the quiet support because he knows, like, us Leos, when we get hot, we're hot, you know.
Yes.
So I'm like, I can't figure this out. I don't understand why this is working. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a moment. I'm gonna think about all of the steps, all of the things that I was taught. What might be the difference? And I realized that the metal that I was using was from, wire wrapping because I'm using what I had available to me, but that metal had a coating on it. And so the coating would have prevented the soldering. So I was like, okay, so it wasn't a failure, right? What I learned in that moment was that coating isn't going to allow me to solder, and I'm not going to be able to move on and do what I'm doing. So I had to take a step back, and instead of just being mad or quitting, because I could have done that, and completely just stewing in that failure, because it was a few hours that I was trying to do this and it wasn't working. I figured it out,
Mhm.
and in that figuring it out, it was like, you can actually do this, like, okay, so now I've passed that test because I failed it for hours. I could have given up on it. I could have been like, this isn't for me. Let me just go back to the other things I was doing. Um, and I really would have been giving up on a dream and a passion without even realizing it. Like, that could have been a very pivotal moment, So it's not just because something doesn't go the way that we might see in that moment. It just means maybe that door wasn't meant to, there was something behind that door that wasn't for us, so that's why it closed. Or sometimes you have to
Exactly.
just keep pushing. It's like that meme. I don't know if you guys ever saw it, where there's a little guy and he's in a cave and he's like,
Mhm.
chucking at the cave, and then he quits. And so the picture that we see is he's sitting there, with the axe, and he's all tired. And, you can see how much he dug through the cave. But then on the other side, and it's just a little itty bitty
Yeah.
sliver, if he'd have just gone one more
One more
time, he'd have reached the goal. So it's like, sometimes you have to keep pushing and you have to keep going. Even the story that Will and I tell of how we got our condo, it was a year-long process. It should not have taken a year for us to close. And there were moments where we were like, well, maybe this place isn't for us. We should be looking for another place. Like, what's taking them so long? All of these, doubts that kind of start to set in. And when you listen to those doubts, oftentimes you miss out on your gifts. And every
yeah.
time that we're in this place where we think about how um, it fits us so perfectly. Even how I'm sitting here right now, the light that's reflecting in is from my big, huge picture window.
Mhm.
Usually before I'd be using a ring light or something. So there's trees, and there's I can see the sky from my view, and like all of those things help me because that fills me, right. I'm a sun baby, so I need the sun.
Mhm.
Um, we live close to a park, and all these things that if we'd have moved somewhere else, we might not have had all the gifts that we receive from this place. Had we have just been like, oh, yeah, that it's taking too long, it's not for us, something's going wrong, let's go somewhere else. And we could have ended up somewhere else and not been as happy and fulfilled as we are every day in this place. So sometimes you just have to keep going, and it's not necessarily failure. It might be redirection, or there might be a part of the lesson that you still have to learn. So that's how I approach it.
That is so awesome. What a good analogy of that. I think about how many times when I'm all geared up and things don't work, either the internet, just like today, iPad fell
Mm-hmm.
over, I kept going. You got on, I was frozen, I had to work with that. But I'm never going to give up. And that's the Leo
Mm-hmm.
blood in you and in me.
Yeah.
We're going to make it work. We're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Failure doesn't mean that you can't do it. Failure is just like a bow and arrow. Sometimes God
Yep.
has to pull you back to spring you
Mm-hmm.
forward.
To bring you
And that
forward.
is
Yep.
bring you forward. And that is so important. When you look at where you were and where you are now, God is never late. His timing is perfect. It's that we can't see what's down the road, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to be patient. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes it's really the patience of Job that we need to enact, because sometimes I'm like, Jesus, but it's
I'm like,
it's
could you
so
sprinkle a
important.
little bit more patience on me? Like, you gave me
Yes.
a lot of gifts, but that wasn't one
Yes.
of them.
That mine either. And I said, okay, I gotta, help me with this. But the last question I want to ask you, and this is so important. There's two more questions. Did you have a mentor? And I would say your mom was one of your mentors with crafts and things like that. And then there was a song out that just came to me. I do music therapy. It pays the cost to be boss. You got to
Mm-hmm.
pay the cost to be boss. What what's your favorite part of being your own boss?
Ooh, okay. So, the number one thing for me in starting in this journey that everybody made sound so glitz and glammy, which you come to find out it can be, is setting my own time, right? Is creating
Yes.
my own schedule, and realizing that if I'm moving inside of divine timing, then that's a huge part of how I need to be living my life, right? So, um, the one of my major, um, especially recently, because I feel like growing up, even in my life, I've always been, I'm very structured. I'm very like, we have to be there on time. We have to da 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 da, even though, and we always laugh because my mom will be there, like
Oof,
she's structured
oof.
in her head, right? She's like, we have to be there. We have to do this. Da, 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 da. But meanwhile, we're the ones all dressed, looking at her like, ma'am, you don't have your shoes on yet. Like, we're all ready
Exactly.
to go, So but I've grown up inside that structure. Um, and I'll even credit that, to my dad as well, because he's another very crafty person, very hands-on type of
Hmm.
person, who also gave me a lot of structure and uh, um, um, inspiration in terms of the entrepreneurship, because I saw both of my parents, even though they had jobs, doing things that were very entrepreneurial. My mom with the ceramics, my dad doing, carpentry and crafty kind of things. And even my grandparents, they own their own businesses. So I saw what it could look like. I saw the freedom in it, right? Because that's one of the number one speaking points of having your own business, is there a certain level of freedom that you receive. And I was like, I think that always appealed to me even before I really even understood what it was. So there's the freedom of time, the freedom of creating my time. Even recently, I've been taking more heed in my schedule to make sure that I'm achieving the things that I want to achieve to reach me to my larger goals, but also making sure that I'm resting while I'm doing it, which I feel like for decades, I never really focused on rest and how important rest really is for our body and for our nervous system. I'll do things and I'll be sitting there and I'm working and everything's moving and I'm like, just take a breath. You don't have to mad type this out. You can type normal and you're still gonna get it done. You don't have to like sort of superwoman my way through everything. I can just be relaxed and be calm and still get it done, and still, have a regulated nervous system so that I'm not so clenched jawed doing everything. So a lot of that, um, has been a lot of lessons, but a lot of the things that I love is just the freedom to learn and to do and to, to say that today I'm going to get up and do an interview with my godmother, and tomorrow I could, fly off to Cancun or something. Like those are the choices that
Yes.
we're allowed to make within, um, this journey. So that's one of my favorite parts of being a boss. And then obviously the other part is, like I said, the service based and the healing and the helping. Um, Doing that in a way that's still kind of on my time or through my passions, is also like really that's the fulfilling part of it. So that's it's the great part
I
of
can
being the one.
empathize with you. I can empathize. Being your own boss, you don't have to clock for anybody else but yourself. I like that part of it, flexibility, so I can identify with that. My business is telehealth, so I can be anywhere for telehealth.
Exactly. Right.
I enjoy that part. I feel liberated, you know.
Hmm.
And when you're talking about lateness, yes, I would tell your mother an hour before my flight arrived, to be there. So she would be there on time because I'm a punctual person.
Yes.
And, we would go into it, but I could hear her say now, one thing you mentioned is relaxing. And,
Hmm.
she would say, Lindsay, we're going to relax today. That's my nickname,
Hmm.
Lindsay. We're going to relax today. And I would have all this energy like you, and
Hmm.
I'd be ready to go. I don't need to relax. I can relax, later. No, we're going
Hmm.
to relax today. So, I can definitely understand that and see how you are taking advantage of that. You just look refreshed, you look vibrant, you have that glow on you. And that means that your jewelry is just really healing and doing
Yes.
a lot. What is the last thing? Where can people get in touch with you? How can they get in touch with you? What is your handle on social media?
So my handle is adorned in Taji on all socials. Taji is Taji, and I chose Taji. A lot of this is a little funny story. A lot of people who've never met me or who only know me through socials, they think my name is Taji. So when they meet me out in the street, they're like Taji, and I'm like, okay, I know you're talking to me, so I'm obviously going to answer. But Taji actually means crown in Swahili, and that was why I chose it originally from my magazine, which is Taji Mag, and moving into my jewelry, which is Adorned in Taji. So I'm Adorned in Taji everywhere on all socials, and my shop is adornedintaji.com. And definitely feel free to take a look and enjoy.
And you do mail, you do take the
I
orders,
ship
and
internationally.
she ships. All right now. And you couldn't see them before, but these are real. You'll see the fake ones out there, but these are the
Hmm.
real ones. So
Yes.
definitely, and they're handmade and they're
Yes.
healing. Let me press them in more. But anyway, Nay, I want to thank you so much for
Thank
being with
you.
us today, talking about entrepreneurship. If God gives you an idea, run with it.
That's
And
right.
that is what you need to do, is to run with it, because he's giving you what he takes you to, he will give you the resources. And
Mhm.
your husband as well is an entrepreneur in the graphics business. So you two
Mhm.
together have a thriving lifestyle. And I like that. Being in New York, being those jet setters, and people
Mhm.
coming in, I would love to bring you and him both on to see how your businesses coincide with
Yes,
each other.
we
So
would love that.
yes. So thank you, love you, and
Thank
until
you. I love
next
you
time,
too.
if you don't mind.